Hello and welcome to another drive-in double feature. I'm Ryan,
I'm Nathan.
and this is the podcast where we talk about two movies a week every Tuesday and Thursday. But before I get into anything, we have a Patreon over at patreon.com/drive-in double feature podcast. It's fun bonus content where Nathan and I playing some games, having some fun discussions, just doing what two friends do best. But we are going to be talking about 1997's Copland, directed by James Mangold. And like I said earlier, this is the final Sylvester Stallone movie this month. And this one, I would say, it's not a career comeback for him because he's been kind of in a career slump, I'm going to say. I mean, he did have some success with Cliffhanger and Demolition Man. I do think those did make some money, but just to give you an idea, just at this point, he's been doing a lot of bombs up to this point. So since Demolition Man, he's done The Specialist, which also bombed, Judge Dredd, which is also another failure, Assassins, Daybreak. Just nothing really good going on. Even in the same year that Copland comes out, he has a cameo in an Alan Smithy film, Burn, Hollywood Burn.
Which I've heard is like horrible. That's like a notorious bad movie.
Yeah, so I can't say this is a career comeback because he does a lot of other garbage after this movie too. But I will say this is more of a return to form, a more serious Sylvester Stallone, where it's more focusing on his acting ability more so than him being a intimidating tough guy badass.
Yeah, exactly. It's more. It feels like like you said, it's returning to like Rocky, even maybe a little bit of Rambo in there.
Nighthawk. I was more thinking of Nighthawks.
Yeah, Nighthawk. Yeah, Nighthawks is a good one too, where he's trying to deliver a performance over a persona, if that makes sense. Like I feel like with movies like Demolition Man, Cobra, it's like a macho persona, an actual movie thing. But now he's like trying to perform. He's trying to build a character.
The other cop characters that he played, I mean, they're not really distinguishable from each other too much. I mean, there's some. It's not like they aren't like carbon copies, but still, it's like there's not really much separating them either. But this one, I would say, um, it's definitely his most different role out of all the ones that he's done, where he's literally playing like a dim-witted small town sheriff.
Exactly, yeah. It just feels, after all the movies we've covered this whole time, it definitely sticks out like a sore thumb, like out of just our selection of movies that we've picked.
And I do. So we didn't plan this at all when we were choosing these movies, but we were covering 8 of his movies, and 6 of them he's a cop.
How did we do this?
I mean, that was not, like I said. So I mean, the only 2 that stick out are Lords of Flatbush and Cliffhanger. Where I mean, and you could argue that he's a force cop in that movie. Technically,
yeah, he has like authority in that one. So like, that's funny. At the very beginning of his career, he wasn't a cop.
Yeah. So, but every single other movie, he was a cop in some shape or form. But like I said, this one, it's a much different take on that. This movie is more of like a crime type of movie. It's not really focusing so much on the action aspect. It's very much like a crime drama. So more keen to like King of New York or maybe like Casino, something like that. Not like mob mentality type of movie, but it's very much like organized crime type of thing.
And the cast will make you think of that. I mean, this cast is absolutely nuts. You got Harvey Keitel, Ray Liotta, Robert De Niro, Michael Rappaport. Like you got a bunch of people that you kind of know from movies like that, from mob movies and maybe cop movies too, like corruption, organized crime. So you have all of that building together, and it's, what a cast! Like I really can't get over that. I've seen this movie before, but watching it again, I was like, God, there's so many people in this movie.
The only two people I was aware of that was in this, because this is my first time seeing it. So the
Mhm.
only two people I was aware of going into it was Harvey Keitel and Sylvester Stallone.
Mm.
So again, that was like opening monologue is done by Robert De Niro, and then
Yeah.
not even 5 minutes later, it's like Ray Liotta is on screen, Robert Patrick, and then
Yeah, Robert
all
Patrick.
the director Peter Berg has a minor role in this movie, and
Yeah. Debbie
um,
Harry makes a cameo.
yeah, and then all of a sudden I'm like sitting there and like his Sylvester Stallone's deputy is Janine Garofalo. I'm like,
now,
what?
now she sticks out. Like I'm like, I guess if there's one person I would expect to be in a cop movie, it's Janine Garofalo. But it was like, okay, cool. Edie Falco's in it for like 10 seconds.
Edie Falco's in it. Catherine Moriarty, who's in Raging Bull.
Yeah, played his like 16-year-old wife.
Yeah, so it's really the star-studded cast.
Yeah,
It's like a lot of heavy hitters, and
which is so weird for James Mangold, who is kind of a known director now. You know, he made Ford versus Ferrari, Logan, and this year he made the new Indiana Jones. But at the time, he'd only made one other movie called Heavy. This was his second movie, and he somehow got a hold of this crazy cast.
yeah, but it really great cast though. I mean,
Yeah,
everyone gives a great performance, and
and
honestly, it's probably one of my favorite Sylvester Stallone performances too.
I agree. Sylvester Stallone is fantastic in this movie. Very subdued and quiet, and I like that about it.
It's I think this is more one of those other movies where it plays to strengths so well, and
Hmm.
when you actually get a competent director like James Mangold, who has, like you said, he's made successful movies, not at this point, but in the future, he makes some really successful movies.
Hmm.
So when you actually give him like a director, because I think a lot of times too, like I think we mentioned in the past, is that Sylvester Stallone was just kind of running into these directors that either weren't great or they were not challenging Sylvester Stallone or giving him like the roles that suited him better or like giving him direction that suited him. It was just kind of like Sylvester Stallone's like, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to be the hero, I want to be the
Hmm.
badass. And so, I mean, I think a lot of that times that it kind of was to a lot of those movies' detriment in a way. But
Yeah.
when you have a movie like Rocky, for instance, where Rocky's not the smartest guy in the room, he doesn't think a whole lot, and this one, like you said, he's very subdued, very just he's not trying to be a badass, he's not trying to be a super witty guy and charming or anything like that. He's just
Hmm.
because his whole character is that he's kind of put in this situation where he doesn't want to be in, and
Hmm.
he's having to deal with this issue that he kind of just wants to be swept under the rug at first, and he doesn't even want to even deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it kind of eats at him. But for like the good chunk of the movie, it's going with emotions. It's easy, it's simple at the beginning, and that's all he cares about. And he doesn't really
He's
want
very
that life
he's
change.
very
Complacent.
yeah, there you go, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, he's very complacent in his situation.
because
Um
what they are kind of doing is that it's these group of dirty cops, which is led up by Harvey Keitel and
mm,
Robert Patrick, and they're all kind of having this situation where they work in for the NYPD, but they live out in a small town in New Jersey,
mhm.
and it's and they can kind of conduct business in their own way and have their own kind of like dirty dealings out there. And they put Sylvester Stallone as the sheriff of this small town because they know he's not going to do anything. They literally pick him because when he was a teenager, he rescued a
Mhm.
girl from drowning, and they just like, okay, make him sheriff. And they even say, he's deaf in one ear. He's
Mhm.
not the bright.
He
He's
has
not the
weakness? Oh my
yeah.
god.
He is a flawed human being.
Oh my god.
He's not perfect. So they put him in this situation where he's not really going to challenge them on anything. Like there's a scene where there's a car that's going by really fast, and Janine Garofalo's character is like, "Hey, let's pull this car over," and
Hmm.
turned out it was Harvey Keitel, and she's like, "Hey, I need to see your license and registration." And he's like, "Hey, Freddie, get your girl over here. She doesn't understand what's going on here."
And
And
she's like,
Sylvester Stallone,
I'm a cop. So
yeah,
like, and then yeah, Sylvester Stallone just waves him away.
yeah, Sylvester Stallone just tells him to go out. It's all right. And so you kind of get he's just there to kind of just look the other way type of
It,
thing. So
yeah, exactly. And Copland is the line that Robert De Niro, I forget that he drops the line. It's like you're a sheriff of Copland. I was like, oh, there it is. There's the title.
and then he said, "Stop, or my mom will shoot."
Yeah, I thought that was weird. You, you look like a couple Nighthawks.
Yeah. Just, but
You want,
anyway,
yeah. Anyway, but what I like about this movie too is Sylvester Stallone is the star, but it doesn't feel like he has to be in every single scene. This movie has a
no,
lot going on in it. Um, the way this movie opens is that Michael Rappaport, what's his
Superboy.
yeah, Superboy. Yeah, so Superboy, not actually Superboy, but he's a cop that has saved the day. But he's driving home drunk, and there's a guy, like two people in another car that are antagonizing him, and he shoots and kills them. And they don't have a gun on them or anything. It was just kind of circumstances that led to this. And because he's dealing with dirty cops, they don't want him to get in trouble. So they plant a gun in his car, and then he also pretends to jump off a bridge so he can go into
Well,
hiding.
they plant the gun in
Hmm.
the victim's car.
Yeah, in the victim's car, so they could say that they had a gun. Robert Patrick does this, who plays the perfect dirty cop, which
Oh, he's such a scumbag in this movie.
he plays it so well. You love to hate him. Actually, I think everybody in this movie does a really good job. I think Harvey does good. Robert De Niro is in it for not much time, and he has some of the best lines in the movie.
Oh yeah, he's got some great scenes in the
Hmm.
movie. But yeah, you're Superboy. They're like, "Oh no, he jumped off the bridge," and they hold this big
Hmm.
funeral for him.
Hmm.
And but it turns out he was just they had him hide away because they didn't want a big investigation into the NYPD
Yeah.
because they had to kind of cover this thing up. But at a certain time, they're like, "Okay, this is getting a little too much." So they they have to kill Superboy.
Yeah,
And,
exactly. And they're going to do it in New Jersey, in their city, because it would be easier to get away with it there. Yeah, and I like how it just overly complicates itself. Like, they were stupid enough to think that, oh, we could just hide him away and this will all go away. But Robert De Niro works with internal affairs and is investigating it. But once again, Harvey Keitel has connections, and he actually gets the case closed by just calling somebody over there.
well, yeah, that's a I really liked. So before that, Robert De Niro, I can already tell that Sylvester Stallone knows more than what he's
Hmm.
saying. So there's a scene where he has a one-on-one conversation with Sylvester Stallone's character, Freddy is his name, I should say,
Yeah, yeah.
and he's telling him like, "Hey, this is your chance to be the big hero." Because, like I said earlier, Sylvester Stallone's character Freddy has always wanted to be a cop in a big city. He always wanted to work for the NYPD, but he was always being held back because he was deaf in one ear due to the accident.
Hmm.
And he kind of gives him this. He's like, "All right, Freddie, this is your big chance. Like, just tell me what's going on in this town. Give me some dirt. You'll be the
Hmm.
big hero finally." And Sylvester Stallone's just kind of like, I just do my own thing. I don't see nothing, type of thing. And just
Exactly. He's just gonna like take it back, and you can tell Robert De Niro is pissed about it. I love the scene where he finds out that the case is off, and he's just like, he takes the documents from everybody. He's, go to lunch. Go to lunch. You go to lunch. Like,
yeah,
send everybody to lunch.
I like the guys in the middle. He's like, "I'm eating my lunch right now," and it's like, "Go to lunch."
Yeah, a great scene. But yeah, Sylvester Stallone takes it. But there's also Ray Liotta's character Figsy that is all a part of this, who's kind of he works like Sylvester Stallone is his protege in a way. He kind of teaches him lessons and stuff like that, but he's like a coke addict at the same time. Um, but Ray Liotta has a little more of a negative opinion of cops, even though he is a former cop.
Yeah, Ray Liotta, he's kind of like he's not with the other dirty cops, but he's definitely not clean either. So
No,
and he has the opening monologue. He said, "I always wanted to be a police officer."
yeah, exactly. What a great! And he was looking at the helicopters at one point in the movie.
Yeah.
But I like his character is almost like a red herring at one point because he pisses off Robert Patrick, and then the next scene you find out his house gets burnt down with his lover in it, and you think like, oh, it's a revenge thing, but that was totally just to throw you off. Like his trail, he did it just for insurance money, and that was just like a plot point that was there to get in the way.
Yeah, and he didn't realize that his lover was in the house. So
Yeah, and I really liked that because I had forgotten about that plot point. It still got me this time.
honestly, like Ray Liotta is probably like my second favorite
Mhm.
performance in here. He's really good in here, I
Oh, I
thought,
agree. Yeah.
and he just plays such a great character because he's definitely not, like I said, he's definitely not a saint, but he does eventually team up with Sylvester Stallone because it's like because Ray Liotta's like, I'm getting out of town, like I got my money, I don't want to deal with this crap anymore, and he finally does team up with Sylvester Stallone because like that's Sylvester Stallone's only options. Like he's the only man that he
Hmm.
can trust, even though he's not the most trustworthy person to begin with.
Exactly. That's what I like about Sylvester Stallone's character is he is sort of flawed. He's listening to the wrong people. He doesn't really know where to go, and that plays into like him kind of just being I guess maybe dumb's not the right word, but he looks at things, not he doesn't really think about things through, and he just cares about justice, and that's what matters is he wants to be a good guy inside. He was so complacent, and he realizes he does have to do the right thing, and he does have to figure out what that's something needs to be done here.
Well, because Sylvester Stallone, he's starting to like notice some things.
Hmm.
He noted like there's Peter Berg's character Joey. He actually sees that Superboy is alive. So
Hmm.
during and in a situation with a criminal, Peter Berg's character gets thrown off of a building. He's kind of hanging on the ledge,
Yep.
and they could have easily came and saved him, but they took their time getting up there, and he
Yeah,
just
that
ends up
oh
falling
god.
to his death.
That scene where Harvey Keitel's lock picking the door, and they're like, "Boss, we should just break down the door and get
Yeah,
him." And he's just sitting there like, "No, no, I'm gonna lock pick this."
right. So Sylvester Stallone starts asking some questions, like because he goes to a party,
Hmm.
and because like right after Peter Berg's character is dead, and like Harvey Keitel's throwing a party like that same evening, and he's like, "Hey, isn't this a little weird? Like it's throwing a party." Like,
Yeah, and they're like party people. Like I hate that like that the Superboy is there drinking and with women. He's like, "Yeah, I got off scot free," but
yeah, but I do like it though because Harvey Keitel he's just like, "Go home, Freddy. Go home. Like
yeah,
forget you
exactly.
saw this. Like stop talking. Go home." Like
Yeah, yeah, that's the way Harvey Keitel kind of treats him like a child almost.
yeah, he does.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, and then after that is my probably one of my favorite scenes in the movie is when Sylvester Stallone's finally ready to talk to Robert De
Hmm.
Niro, and
Yeah.
he shows up in Robert De Niro's office, and he's like, "All right, I got the dirt you need. Like I'm gonna spill it. I'm gonna tell you everything. Superboy is alive." And Robert De Niro's
Hmm.
just casually eating his lunch, and he's just and he's like, "Well, aren't you gonna react?" And he's like, "No, like that was 2 weeks ago. Like the
It's
case is
over.
done. It's over."
But
It's like
the best line he drops is "You blew it." Like the
that's
way,
yeah,
yeah.
you blow it. Like
Great,
just
great delivery.
just throwing it back in his face. Like he's like, "No, your chance to be a hero was 2 weeks ago. Now it's over."
Yeah. No, that's great. And Sylvester Stallone kind of has it because he even tells Ray Liotta, and he's like, "You can't go at this straight head on." Finds out that Ray Liotta did it for the insurance money, and Ray Liotta just kind of leaves. He's like, "No, I'm
Mhm.
out of here. I'm not." And nobody's with him. Even like his cops, Janine Garofalo leaves. The the dude from Truman Show, forget his name, is also a cop in this, and he's out as well. So he is all alone because he finally gets Superboy in custody, and he plans on bringing him back to New York. It's just going to be a trek. And see, this is something I wanted to bring up. I've read this movie being described as a neo-western, a western, set in modern times. And when I watched it this time, I really analyzed this. Like, yeah, I could definitely see it. You got a sheriff of a town, you got somebody in custody, and you got to get out. But the whole town is against you. The bandits are against you. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I feel that. This feels kind of like a western, and it makes sense because James Mangold would do that 310 the Yuma remake a few years later.
Yeah, it. Well, now that you say that, I immediately thought of High Noon,
Yeah,
and
exactly. Yeah.
but yeah, I the climax of this movie is really good because, like I said, they Freddy's been kind of sticking his nose in business that he shouldn't have been doing. They
Hmm.
finally find him and Superboy, and that one of the like the most. I mean, it's not like a super bloody scene, but it's so effective. Because I had like a reaction watching it is when
Uh-huh.
because like I said, he's deaf in one ear, and they could just go, "Which one's your good ear? This one," and then just shoot a gun like right next to him. He's just like
Yeah.
screaming in pain.
Yeah, and he just like yeah, it's absolutely like crazy because the rest of the movie he's deaf, and you know what? So are you. They have the ringing playing throughout the whole climax of the movie, so you don't hear anything. I saw this movie when I was like really young, maybe like a teenager, and I remember I was like, "Whoa, they did this action scene with just the ringing noise, crazy!" But
You were like, somebody hit the mute button.
yeah, it's turn up the volume. But no, I still think it's very effective because it leads to a climax where the idea is that Sylvester Stallone can't hear anything, so he has to use visual cues in order to shoot people.
Yeah, I what I like about this climax is, I mean, compared to the other action scenes in the movie and other movies we watched, they built up this scene so effectively in my mind.
Hmm.
It's just they didn't have to do a whole lot. I mean, just doing this. I mean, there's a couple of guys that get killed and shot,
Hmm.
sure, but to me, like I do like watching movies like Cobra, Tango and Cash. I mean, those are fun. But I will say, for my mind, it's like once you blend in a bunch of action scenes together, they kind of, I kind of think it gets to be too much
Yeah, I
sometimes.
think about like Tango and Cash, which we covered, where we both were like at the end of this movie, it was kind of like, oh, I don't know, this is a little tiring, right?
Yeah, it just I was kind of like, all right, you've already shown me really crazy stuff leading up to this. It's just now
Mm-hmm.
you can't even match what you've built up so far. But
Mm-hmm.
this one, like I said, like the ending scene is so effective. It's just one man with a shotgun. He's
Mm-hmm.
gonna go finally just take care of business, and
Mm-hmm.
he, like you said, it's you just hear the ringing noise constantly. And the cool part about the scene is he does take out one guy, then he takes out another one. But since we, the audience, can't hear and he can't hear either, he gets shot, and it's really shocking.
Yeah, it's like a
So
jump scare.
yeah, because he doesn't know, he can't hear the guy sneaking up on him,
Hmm.
and that and then again too, like in other movies, it kind of makes sense. It doesn't make sense. Sorry, that like because Ray Liotta comes and out of nowhere and saves the day. And
Hmm.
in other movies, you'd be like, well, how did they not hear this guy, or how did they not like
Yeah.
notice this man like running up the street with a gun, or But
Hmm.
this one, it makes sense because he can't hear him coming, so he didn't know he was there until after Ray Liotta saved him.
Exactly. Yeah. And yeah, there's that great final sequence of him being at the door. Harvey Keitel shows up behind him, tries to shoot him, but Sylvester Stallone turns around and shoots him in time. And Harvey Keitel, he doesn't really. His justice is death. He does die, he does get killed, but Sylvester Stallone does bring in Superboy, and it ends on a little bit. It ends on a good positive note, at least in my opinion. After all this destruction, something is done at least. Um, and I know we mentioned this before, but this is Sylvester Stallone. At least this month of us talking his best performance, and I think it comes with him believing in the movie. It's kind of like a famous fact that he cared so much about this movie. And this movie's low budget; it's 15 million, which is really low for the cast it has. And he actually cut his pay down to be the lowest it could possibly be with the Screen Actors Guild in order to be in this movie. And I think that level of care goes into him like loving this role and really giving it his all.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, you could tell he cared about this movie. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really unfortunate though because I don't really ever hear anybody talking about this movie that much.
No,
And
I agree. I think it's a movie that deserves more love. I really do, because I even like on my letterboxd when I was looking at like things and just ratings from friends, I thought it would be higher. I actually love this movie. I think it's a fantastic movie from start to end. There's not a lot of love for it, and I don't know. I don't know what people are missing.
no, I don't. I'm not really sure. And it did under. I mean, it did make money, but it
Mhm.
still underperformed for the amount of. I mean, for the amount the insane cast list in this movie, you'd think it would be a
A hit.
lot better,
Yeah,
but
but
it wasn't what it was meant to be.
mhm.
So um I but I did want to add the female love interest in the movie, which is the
Yeah,
girl that he does save in there, and she ends up marrying Peter Berg's character, and he dies, and then the thing I like about her character is that even though technically um, her husband died because of the other dirty cops, like Sylvester Stone's looking into it, and
mhm.
then all of a sudden, she like notices that he's looking into it, and she's like, "Stop digging! Like this is not
Yeah,
how we do things here." And then he kind of gets kind of turned off to her as a character, just
yeah.
like thought she was one of the good ones, and it's just like, oh no, very
She's
she's just as complacent as I was.
exactly, which is sad because that's like a whole thing of the movie is he's jealous because he saved this woman. She's actually the reason her saving or him saving her is the reason he's deaf in one ear. So that's just a sad reveal. My only problem with that, and if I was going to have a problem with it, there's definitely a big age difference between Sylvester Stallone and her, and they were both supposed to be around the same age, I believe, because they looked around the same age whenever he saved her. So there was a weird age gap, but I think that's really my only issue.
Yeah, I mean, in real life, there's like a 14-year age difference, I believe.
Really?
So,
Okay, yeah.
not that egregious, I guess. But again, it was like he was supposed to be like a teenager, like you said.
Yeah, exactly.
But I didn't think
That's a
about it too much. It's a
that's a
very
nit.
small nitpick.
That's a nitpick.
That's a sin. Ding.
Uh-huh. No, I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know. I highly recommend this movie. I really think it is one worth watching.
But no, I definitely probably one of the greater Sylvester Stallone performances I've ever seen. To be quite honest, I mean, it's
Hmm.
just in terms of his acting ability. I mean, we would, he'd have like Rocky being one of his best performances, and I definitely think this one's up there. I mean, he's just totally committed to the role. His all his strengths are being played to, and just a really effective performance. I'm going to say.
Yeah, yeah. Check
Uh,
this one out.
but to kind of close the timeline on Sylvester Stallone.
Hmm.
Um, Sylvester Stallone, he was still kind of looking for that next big hit because this one, critically did well, but
Hmm.
financially was not what it needed to be. He kept doing a lot of other action movies like Get Carter, Driven.
Oh boy.
Oh, even did a direct-to-video movie called Avenging Angelo, and uh,
God,
another Razzie-nominated performance in Spy Kids 3D,
you
and
can't trash on that performance. Come on.
uh, and then he kind of took a little break from acting for a little bit. Like he did, like
Mhm.
there was a couple year gap, but there was a good reason because in 2006 he came out with Rocky Balboa, aka Rocky Six, and uh, very much like what people really wanted to see, like his
Mhm.
one of his best performances in a long time. I mean, I'm not my personally not my favorite, not the best Rocky movie,
Yeah.
but
No, no, but it is better than some Rocky movies, which I think
it's
is where you need to be.
yeah, it's still a really good movie, and it's the movie that people wanted to see from him in a while. And it's just after a bunch of like action movies, it's just like, oh, like finally something. And then ironically, that kind of revitalized his career
Mhm.
and started getting some more high profile role. Like he came back and he did another Rambo movie.
Yeah, which
He
you should say that that one and Rocky Balboa were both directed by him as well.
correct, yeah,
Yeah,
he did, and he wrote both of them as well too. So it's just
yeah.
him back in the steering wheel, so to speak. And um, and then then he made the Expendables, which was another really successful
Hmm.
franchise, like a huge hit that so much it spanned multiple sequels at this point.
The fourth one's coming out this year as we speak.
Exactly. And then, not gonna lie, after that, there's a lot more
Yeah,
garbage.
he has a career, and he's one of those stars that he can pop up in high profile movies like I'm trying to think, like Creed, which is a really fantastic movie. Guardians of the
Well,
Galaxy, he has a bit part, but he also is in Junk too. He doesn't he he doesn't really
nobody
care
was really
everywhere.
nobody was really clamoring for Escape Plan 2, but he
No,
did.
and
And
then Grudge Match. Ooh.
yeah, exactly. But I will say, like you said, Creed. That's a huge milestone to make because he got nominated for an Oscar, like the first time he's been nominated for an Oscar since his original Rocky performance.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. And he's fantastic in it. So
right. I mean, it's amazing that you could take a character like that that's almost 40 years old at that point when the movie
mhm,
came out, and it's still really effective. It's still a character people want to see, and it's still a
mhm.
character that's evolved. I mean, at that time where it's like Rocky has to become the trainer at this point, and which he did already in Rocky Five, but nobody liked that one. So,
Yeah, well, that one's bad.
but he's still coming out with movies. He just had a decently sized role in Guardians of the Galaxy 3, I
A
think.
bigger role, yeah.
Yeah,
And then he starred in the Amazon movie Samaritan, and he's working on a billion sequels to old movies. He actually was talking about Demolition Man sequel. He has a Cliffhanger sequel, and I think the Cliffhanger sequel is greenlit. So he's got a lot of stuff coming up with Amazon, I believe, is his partner.
yeah, but he's also in the show Tulsa King right now,
Hmm.
and he's got his own reality show where you can see him with his family and all kinds of antics. So it's like it, so like Sylvester Stallone, it's like he gives you a little bit of good, and then he gives you a little bit of bad. It just kind of evens out in the end.
Yeah, and I guess you know what, it adds to him. That's him. Love the
But
guy. I was watching all these movies. You know what? Sylvester Stallone's great.
yeah,
Just an icon.
very much an icon, very much a figurehead in the industry. But as we kind of alluded to earlier, we are going to rank our movies that we watch. So there's 8 movies that we need to rank. So I think we should do it from worst to best
Yeah, I wonder what's going to be
because
worse.
yeah, so it's like I don't think that's going to be too shocking what we put as the worst one.
Yeah,
And so I'll go first. My number 8 is Stop or My Mom Will Shoot, and
ditto. Awful movie.
pretty much for all the reasons that we stated. It's not good at all, and it's very embarrassing. If I were Sylvester Stallone, I would be embarrassed to be in that movie.
Yeah,
So
which he is. He says he regrets it, and I totally get it. It's
I
just awful.
100%. 100%. Cannot say that enough.
Mhm.
Number seven. Do you want to say what your number seven is?
Yeah, my number seven is Lords of Flatbush. Just kind of like a mediocre movie. I don't know, nothing really special about it other than just, oh, it's early Stallone. That's
Yeah.
yeah.
For me, it's like there's some flashes of what he was going to become in there, but
Mhm.
for my money, not a very fun watch, not a very interesting movie, to be
No.
honest. And it's just kind of, I was not into it whatsoever. But I
Mhm.
mean, it's not awful, but just not one I really cared about.
Yeah, just kind of
Uh,
boring. All right, what's your number? I'm guessing that was your number seven as
that
well.
was my number seven. Yes.
Mhm.
Um, my number six, I think this is where we're going to differ, is Cobra.
Cobra. Yeah, we do differ here. I picked.
So
Oh, go ahead and explain. Yeah.
I still a really fun movie, but there were just others that I preferred over it. So it's still a positive for its placing. That's still a movie I would say is a good movie that you should watch, but I did like the other ones better than that one.
Yeah, and it's kind of my same sentiment. I picked Tango and Cash. Fun movie. No, it's still a really fun movie. Just maybe I enjoyed the other ones a little bit more. They had a few more moments that I enjoyed. Maybe I enjoyed more thoroughly. But it's still like I think only two of our movies I would consider bad or mediocre. Tango and Cash is fun.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
definitely. And that would be my number five is Tango and Cash.
Yeah.
And
Wow. Wow. My number five's Cobra. We just we just swapped them around.
yeah, that's it's. I think this is gonna be similar to what we did Friday the 13th, but
Yeah.
um, no, I basically for the same reason you stay. I really like the banter between them. That's kind of what put it over the edge uh,
Mhm.
over Cobra. But still a really fun movie, like you said. It's just the only two movies are the ones I probably would not recommend. Everything else on this list is recommend.
Yeah. I think I put Cobra over Tango because I think I thoroughly enjoyed Cobra more. Like I enjoyed the whole experience where Tango had like a little bit that like a part that I didn't love, but both are fun.
Yeah.
Um so number four. What's your number four?
What's your number four? I'll
Oh,
let you go
mine.
first.
Okay. Mine is Cliffhanger. I put Cliffhanger at number
Hey,
four.
I put Cliffhanger.
Oh wow, what? I wonder how the rest of this list is going. Well, actually, I don't know what your next one is. But Cliffhanger, really fun movie. I think I put it over Tango and Cobra. I because I kind of grouped those together when I talked about it. I call them like junk food movies. Cliffhanger just has more pizzazz, more memory. I think I'll remember more stuff from Cliffhanger, like the violence, John Lithgow, the setting. It's so different that I think it just is a more memorable movie.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it's just there's so many memorable moments. I mean, this one, I mean, as much as even though I like Tango and Cash and Cobra, and I would give those recommends. This is kind of like the next level up, I would say, in that
Mm,
list. So this one, Cliffhanger, definitely a very fun villain, fun setting. Not really a boring movie whatsoever. Just
mhm.
a lot of gore, a lot of silly scenes all together. Just a fun movie that I will also very much remember, and I definitely give that one a huge recommend.
Mhm. All right. Well, do you want to go first with your number three?
Yeah, my number three is going to be Demolition Man, and
Wow, same.
because just like in terms of wacky action movies, just of all these other ones, this one takes the cake. It's just got a cool premise, cool setting, very memorable villain. Just a lot of like this one does comedy way better than Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. Like if like
Yeah.
so, it's very much like if this is like the I can't say I've seen all of his comedies because I haven't seen Oscar, but this might be his funniest movie. It might be.
That's a very confident answer for I think Oscar. I'm sure if we saw that one, it wouldn't be too funny. But no, I agree. I think if like that one just felt right, it was just a super funny, super silly action movie It's what I would want. It's exactly what I wanted out of an action movie like that. And it just worked perfectly. So I think it really just captures that feeling right. And you're right, I actually laughed. So that is a big plus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Nathan, what would be your number two?
My number two is Nighthawks. This one is my surprise one. This is the one that surprised me the most. Just because it's a super cool action movie, but like more in line with what we French Connection, Dirty Harry, something like that. It just I don't know, really cool noir cop movie, and just no, I just think it's a really neat one that I think more people need to see.
Yeah, that completely summarizes mine. Just totally surprising. I mean, when I was going into it, I really was not expecting anything. At best, I was thinking it's like, all right, it's going to be like a mediocre action movie. I mean, it's
Mm,
not going to be, it won't be boring, but it won't be that memorable either. But instead, it's it's like it's 81, but it still feels like one of those 70s movies where it's
yeah.
very gritty and dirty. I mean, there's not, like in a lot of the 80s movies, it's like they tried to make everything look really polished and clean with all
Hmm.
these other action movies. Like they were hyper violent, but it's like all these cities look nice and all
Yeah.
everything. And now it's like, they're still like really dirty and stuff. And again, like very good performance from Sylvester Stallone, where he's just playing like a really overworked cop that's very obsessed with his work and
Hmm.
very like, as much as I do like Wesley Snipes and John Lithgow, it's like those two guys are like cartoon characters in their movies, and then
Yeah.
Rutger Hauer is actually a very effective villain in a
Yeah.
movie.
He actually has like a presence, like a actual like scary villain, like someone you could actually see in real life and be like, oh, that's a scary person.
Yeah, so very much the very memorable character, and I'd say the only thing holding it back from being in the number one spot is knowing that there is, like, as much as we'd liked it, there is like an even like almost a masterpiece maybe that could have
Yeah.
happened if it wasn't cut to death.
I really wish we had access to that. If that ever becomes available, we would have to talk about it on the show.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
But I'm going to give you my very unpredictable
Oh,
number
oh,
one.
okay. Hold up. I got to prepare myself.
Okay, number one is Rhinestone. I thought it was really funny when he
Oh,
started singing country music with Dolly Parton.
you can't go wrong with Dolly. That's what I
And
always say.
no, it is my number one is obviously Copland. Fantastic movie. Just honestly, like everything was just firing on all cylinders. Criminally underrated movie, I will say too. It's
Yeah.
just the fact that this movie just was not recognized during its time, and still there's not a whole lot of people talking about it now. Even it's a shame. It's a movie that more people should talk about. It's a forgotten classic. I'm going to say that.
No, I think it should be. It feels like a movie that should be considered a quintessential '90s crime classic. Like it may not be as good as like Goodfellas, of course, but like I think it should be considered like in the same conversation. Goodfellas, Casino, Copland. I feel like they're very similar casts, and just like it's a really fantastic movie. It's actually one of my favorites. I if you can't tell, I recommend you just see that one at least.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. If you don't see any other movie on from this month, that would be the one you need to go out of your way to see.
Yeah,
Uh, but
yeah,
that's it for Stallone month. Thank you so much,
yeah,
Sylvester, for stopping in.
yeah. Thanks, Sylvester, wherever he's at.
Yeah, well, he's in Tulsa.
Oh, that's right. Okay, we can't race out there. I guess that we're doxing ourselves. We're not in Oklahoma, so yeah.
Oh no, there's only
Only-
49 other choices.
yeah, sorry.
Although I think we've said we're where we are pretty numerous times.
Yeah, I think so.
But anyway, I was, I think compared to like Burt Reynolds month, there was there were some misses on there, and just like that one. But
Mhm.
again, what I do like about digging into their filmography, it's like, hey, you know what? Like the other one, like was Hooper, I think, is the one we both really loved a lot. And it's just like we
Mhm.
wouldn't have done it without doing these showcases of their talents. And
Mhm.
I'd really love to do another showcase of somebody, like maybe even somebody super famous we've talked about before, and
Mhm.
not tackling their most well-known movies. We instead go for movies that not everyone talks about all the time.
Yeah, because it paints a picture. Like I'll be serious. My picture of Burt Reynolds and Sylvester Stallone is different after both of these months. It really is. Like I have a different idea what kind of actors they were, what all the different stuff they have. So, I mean, going through a filmography can tell you a lot. So it's been a good time.
It has been.
Hmm.
But we're going to go back to another favorite theme of ours. So, Nathan, what are we doing on Tuesday?
All right, we are back at it with Bondzilla. It's time for a classic James Bond with 1981's For Your Eyes Only, which is not streaming anywhere. You will have to rent that one if you want to watch it with us.
Yeah, you'll have to pay up.
Yeah, pay us, and I'll send you my DVD.
Yeah, there, there you go. But thank you once again so much for joining us. If you have any thoughts, opinions about Sylvester Stallone, you could email us over at drivingdoublefeaturepodcast@gmail.com. Don't forget to post us on X at DIDF pod. And once again, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/drivingdoublefeaturepodcast. But until next time.
Until next time.